Good, and we're recording. All right, so we'll start in a second, but I'll start by introducing you.
Okay.
And so we got to get that name correct.
Okay.
So I got to get that
we
name
need
correct.
Nasco then here because I can't even get my name correct half the time.
This is my profession, right? We always have to get names correct.
Yes.
All right, let's just go. Let's just go for it.
Let's do it.
All right. We're good? We're good. We're good. All right, welcome to episode 3 of Inside MNU Athletics. I am Sports Information Director Chad Jenkins, and I'm joined by head women's volleyball coach Molly Karagyaurov. How about that?
That was good.
Does that work?
No, that works. Yeah.
Now, see, when I'm doing games, I have to get everybody's name right, and we've got a lot of crazy names, and yours takes the cake.
Agreed.
And when your husband, Nasco, was on the soccer team, I wasn't calling games at that time, and I wasn't doing PA, so I didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But people were like, how do you pronounce this guy's name? And I'm like...
Tanis? Yeah,
yeah.
He got that a lot.
Yeah. And we just go, just say Nasco. That's what everyone calls him, say Nasco. But since I've started taking over, it's like, I can learn how to say a weird name. Let's do it.
Definitely.
And then he does the soccer video from 6-7 years ago. And he says his name. And that's when I started to figure out what it was. But it's still ridiculous. It's a crazy name. So
it is ridiculous. And I asked him, so obviously he's Bulgarian.
Right.
And I asked him, I said, is it a normal, name in Bulgaria? And he said no. He said it's very, even for Bulgarians, it's like one of those names that's
they get
unique.
it wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
So
okay. So
that made me feel better about it.
So what does your family say? How do they say it?
Well, my dad calls Nasco Moscow half the time.
I think that works.
Yeah, so I mean...
Bulgaria's close to Moscow, I
right?
imagine, right?
Not even close.
No? Not even a little bit?
Not even a little bit close, no. But, no, honestly, my family has been troopers about it, and his family, more importantly, have been troopers about it, and he obviously has been dealing with it his whole life, so I think that for us, it's just a matter of, like my dad he just thinks there's several letters in there that could go that are optional.
Yeah, they don't need it, yeah.
So, but it's fun.
You should go with Molly Nasco. I think that might be a new trend.
There you go.
You don't take your husband's last name, you take his nickname. I think Molly Nasco works. What do you think?
No, Nasco works for sure.
Yeah.
But in Bulgarian tradition, it's funny when we get to the, point of naming kids, all Bulgarian children take their father's first name as their middle name. Okay. All of them, no matter how many we have. So all of their middle names will be his first name,
and
which people can't say anyway.
Right. And what about girls?
They just add an A on it. So Atanasov if it's a boy, and Atanasova if it's a girl. All their middle names. And then that last name.
Right.
So we got to get creative with the first names. That's what we're discovering. Because you can't just have,
Jane.
Emily. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see.
What was I going to ask you? Well, let's just get into it then.
Yeah.
So this year's obviously different than any other year. This is your second year at MNU. We've got COVID to deal with. How has that been going with your team, wearing masks and distancing and all that stuff?
It's been going well. I think that the girls are adapting to it pretty well, and they're taking it in stride, which that's kind of been the theme that we've projected as a staff, that no matter what happens, we will take it in stride, and we will take it one step at a time. Even if it doesn't feel ideal, even if it feels wild and frustrating, ultimately I've said that we'll take it one step at a time. So, originally, we all got tested, 27 tests and 27 negatives, which was awesome. And then we had our first case, and so currently I have 5 girls in quarantine. But even the positive case has been super mild symptoms, and so I'm thankful that they're back healthy within about 24 hours. They're like, Coach, I feel like I can practice again,
right.
Which is wild. And so, but they still have another week or so. Yeah, maybe less now. 6 days.
We're sitting here with a plastic divider between us. It's just a really strange time.
Yeah.
And so, do we know where that person got it from?
No idea.
Yeah, just.
How do you know? Right. How do you know? But a week. I don't know how many days between. Whatever. She tested negative and then tested positive. So obviously you get it from somewhere. It's a virus. Right. gonna go around. I don't know.
Yeah, my daughter got it from her basketball coach.
Okay.
He sent out an email that said, "Hey, I've tested positive. Make sure all the girls get tested." And so we had to get her tested. She was the only one who tested positive.
Wild.
She was in our house for 4 days with us before we even tested her, and nobody else got it.
Yep.
But we were all counted as positives because we may as well be, because we all had to isolate anyway. It was just really strange. And and she felt crappy for like 1 day, and that was it. It was really strange.
Yeah, no, my husband was the same situation with NASCO this summer, and so it was like, he got it. He tested positive, super mild symptoms, and it was like we had that moment where it was like, do I sleep on the couch?
Right.
I was like,
it's too late now.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, no, it's fine. And I didn't get it. And I got tested negative, so.
That's so strange. I was going to ask, Atanas, is that a derivation of like Anthony? What is that first name for him?
It's a saint. Back to the name. It's a Bulgarian saint and an Eastern Orthodox traditional saint. He's actually, a lot of those names go feminine or masculine.
Right.
And so I don't know what it is. But Bulgarian's a super old language, so it's the oldest of all the Slavic languages. And so I don't know that they might take offense if it derives from anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
Super
Anthony
old.
is a derivation of Atanas.
Exactly.
We'll say it that way.
Exactly.
Speaking of Orthodox, let's go through your faith background. When you are recruiting people and bringing them to MNU, obviously your faith is part of it. What is your story faith-wise? What's your testimony?
Yeah. My story, so I was raised very conservative Christian.
Right.
I'm from a big family. I'm from a homeschool family, was homeschooled my entire life.
How many siblings?
I'm one of seven. And we actually lost 4, so there would have been 11 of us.
Wow.
But yeah, all homeschooled. And early on, my parents decided to make some changes in their life and in their walk. And it ultimately, at the age of 6 years old, brought us through the doors of a Nazarene church, Blue Springs First Church, where we ended up attending for 10 years. And it was kind of a good transition from, we were just coming from an RLDS Mormon background. And my parents really decided and made an intentional decision to start pursuing Jesus and the Bible rather than church labels and denominations. And that was a big impactful thing for me as a young woman. But yeah, and then I was very involved in my youth group. NYC, the whole Nazarene thing, came here, played Max basketball, volleyball. I was that kid. So it's I'm no stranger to it.
And where's your family from?
My family's from
Lee
the Missouri
Summit.
side. So Lee Summit, Blue Springs.
And for those of you who are unaware, Molly played 4 years of volleyball here. Stud for 4 years. All-decade team. We talked about that last year. Talk about your volleyball life. When did that start? You played other sports.
Yeah.
And go through all that.
Yeah, definitely. So always been an athlete and labeled as an athlete, not necessarily a basketball player, volleyball player, soccer player, whatever. Even though I did all those, I ran a little bit of track. But actually, MNU found me because of basketball. And Coach Olin at the time recruited me when John Lewis, now the head coach, was the assistant. And they recruited me. And they couldn't give me a scholarship number right off the bat. And so, I ended up at MNU kind of by fault because they said, hey, give us some time to get some money together and give you an offer. They said, don't talk to anyone else. And Coach Olin asked me not to. And I said, okay, but I'm going to talk to your volleyball coach. So I started volleyball. It had always been around the family. My sisters had played it. And my brothers fell in love with it.
Right.
But I didn't actually start playing till I was a junior in high school. So I played junior and senior year of homeschool volleyball. Never played club or competitive or traveling or all the things that the kids pay for now.
Right.
And then ended up at MNU. I don't know that I can claim stud for all 4 years. That might be a stretch. But definitely
you started
developed.
all 4 years, so we can say that. If you start as a freshman, that's a pretty good indicator.
Yeah, but we weren't very good as a freshman.
That's true. That's a true story. So you that was Rick at the time?
Rick Banis, yeah. I was on campus and said, hey, I've been playing volleyball for 2 years, just 2 seasons. Why the heck not? Try it out. And I had a one-on-one tryout with him, and he offered me a scholarship on the spot.
Yeah, I mean,
it was pretty quick.
If you can jump over the net, they tend to like that. So then go through your experience at MNU. Rick was here just that 1 year as a freshman, right?
Yeah, just freshman. He left midway through the spring of my freshman year.
Right. And so then the Steels kind of came into the picture after that. Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, actually, Kristen didn't get here until July. And so for a while there, we were just under an assistant who was Danielle Sperry at the time. And it was wild. Kristen came in and obviously revolutionized the program.
Right.
It went from, within coaching, I think a lot of people, I think there's three elements to it. I think there's the tactical, the technical, and the relational. And Kristen was definitely a relational coach.
Okay.
She made you want to work really hard, and you wanted to please her, and she was really fun to play for and just motivational in that side. And then the tactical, she'd put teams out that would win, period.
Right.
She recruited and put teams out. The technical, she'll admit, self-admittedly, she doesn't have the patience for. She doesn't want to teach you the skills or the mechanics. But, Rick was a little bit the opposite, and so had more of the technical ability and focusing on individuals and stuff. But relationally, didn't fit a lot of the style of the girls I was playing with.
Right. So before you got here, it was I was here for a couple years before you arrived. And the volleyball team was like 0 and whatever for the conference and 1-20 overall, just like completely awful. And by the time you left, it was conference championships and trips to nationals. It's kind of like BM and PM before Molly and post Molly. Now you can say that it's Kristen Steele and a bunch of other people too, but there is a specific dividing line, and you're a big part of that.
Thank you for that.
So, who were your biggest influences as a player? If you didn't play your whole life, were you into volleyball, the history of it, and all that stuff as you were growing up? Who influenced you most as a player?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a sports nerd for sure,
Right.
no matter what. So, if there's sports on, I'm going to watch it. Even my husband and I the other day were watching what's it called? Cornhole. Professional cornhole. Incredible,
Yeah.
But we're just like that. We like sports. We like getting into that. So definitely when I started picking up volleyball and it became what I was going to do, I definitely dove in head first and said, let's learn. But I would say, obviously, Kristen, from a relational standpoint and just making me motivated to work hard was huge. But honestly, I would say my biggest influence as a player here at MNU was Lin Jun Ji.
Okay.
So Lin Jun came, and we were, she came, junior and senior year. But she came early, and she was here the summer before that. And every summer I spent with Lin Jun. Not a lot of people know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we worked together.
Talk about her. She's from China. She played on the national team?
Yeah, so she was she's been on the Chinese beach national team since she was 9 years old. And when she was 12 years old, they told her she wasn't tall enough to be a beach volleyball player, so she was on the national softball team for a year. And then she grew to be about 6 feet or 6'1", whatever she was. Yeah. And then they put her back on the beach national team. And so, I mean, in 2009, she was in the AVP championship, played against Miss Mary and Carrie Walsh, took them to a third set and almost beat them, lost by 2 points. So has pictures with a silver medal and gold medal with Miss Mary and Carrie Walsh.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so absolutely.
I knew she played beach, but I didn't know at that level. I thought,
the absolute best in the world.
And she was older, right? How old was she at MNU?
That's the question.
No one knows?
No one knows.
She could have been 25 or 40. We don't quite know.
I want to say she was like 6 years older than me.
Okay.
So she was like 26.
Mid-20s.
And graduated at like 28 here or something like that.
She was
old and cranky, and we all admit it. She did not want to play her warm-up games. She thought all of the locker room banter was so stupid. But I was like, hey, if I've been doing it since 9 years old at the level that the Chinese train at, which they're famous for, I wouldn't want to do this crap either. So
she was, I wasn't going to say that because I didn't know that. But she was like, she never made a mistake.
No.
Like
because it's unacceptable to.
Every pass was perfect because she played all over the floor.
Yeah.
Every hit was placed exactly where she wanted it to be, and if she ever needed to set, that was fine too.
And her as a player, like she, literally the moment that I was like, "Holy crap, who is this person?" is coach. We were in a serve receive drill, and it was me and G right next to each other. And because we were always in reception together, we were the two outside, so we were a big staple of the reception line. And people were serving, and too many people served at the same time. So 2 balls went at G at the same time, right as Kristen screams, like, hey, like, get it together, to the servers, like, y'all are serving, like, whatever. So both balls come at G, and G goes like this, boom, boom, passes one arm, passes off both balls almost simultaneously. Both go perfectly to target. And then she looks at Kristen and is like, what, coach? What'd you say? Right. And I was like, oh, my gosh. But it was just that level. But how it transformed me was working with her every summer. So we worked 8:30 to 5:30 every day at a volleyball club together training kids.
Okay.
And so then in all the breaks, in all the water breaks, in all the lunch breaks, it was her and I. And she would teach me drills that they did in China, and we would do them 100 million times. And so because she said, well, this is what you do. And I said, well, what else? And she said, no, this is what you do. And you just keep doing it. And it was funny because then she didn't understand the U.S. Mentality towards club sports. And because she would say all the time, Molly, these girls are horrible at volleyball. Why are they here? You know, why do we let them come back? And I was like, oh, gee, what do you mean? But it was just a totally different mentality internationally to it. But she, as an influence, as a player, she absolutely impacted me in a way I can't even describe.
And that your senior year was that best team, right? Where it was you and G and Salem and
Taryn Salem, Vladislava,
and Vladi,
Megan Hayes, Luca Gomez, Becca Valdez.
Like everybody was elite at every position. That team was really fun. Who are your biggest influences when it comes to how you coach and what's your coaching style and all that?
Yeah, that's tough. You know, I as a student of just sports, I like watching a lot of different people and admire different coaches for different reasons. Right. Like Tony Dungy, I love the way that he speaks about his faith, and he's such a leader in the community. And people like that just really impact me. People like Jurgen Klopp is the Liverpool manager, and his camaraderie with his team and the ability that people, you can tell he loves his guys and his guys love him. All those things really influence me as you know, not just the volleyball side. I could say Karch Karai or some of the, you know, like Russ Rose or John Cook that have so many pieces of it. But for me, coaching isn't so much about everything can't be about the sport. And so that's why I like those guys like Jurgen Klopp who speak openly about their faith and about the relationships, and same with Tony Dungy. And so as far as being influenced, I say it's kind of a mixed bag, but definitely I have massive amounts of respect for coaches who can speak about Jesus.
Right. How about your coaching philosophy? Have you thought about, this is your second year as a head coach. How many years did you assist? 2 or 3?
I was 2 years here. Yeah. So
it's been a good handful of years. What would you say is your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, the 3 things I believe that are important for coaches is the relational aspect of the game, the tactical, and the technical. I've never had a coach that possesses all 3, and I strive to possess all 3. Okay. I don't think I'm there yet at all. But I do strive to possess all 3, and I think especially at this level, we're able to do that, whereas some levels it's hard to even have a relational aspect in a positive way because the tactical and the technical and the winning and losing becomes such a big deal. And so I'm blessed that I do think that I can get to a point where I achieve it, but ultimately, yes, we're trying to play at a very high level. As a player, I played at a high level, and then I also coached internationally, and I've been blessed to experience coaching in a different language and so many things like that it's kind of morphed me into what matters as a coach. You know, like it matters what comes out of your mouth, yes, but it really matters how you say it.
Right.
And that became very evident to me trying to coach, knowing 6 words of German. They threw me in a gym with...
Go ahead and talk about that. After you played here, you played in Germany.
Yeah.
And then coached there. Go ahead and talk about that experience.
Yeah. So I went, after I graduated, I had a professional agent and went on a professional tour in Slovenia. And it was about 35 to 40 other athletes in the gym, and I was the only one from the NAIA. Everyone was, of course, sporting their college gear, and I was surrounded by Purdue and UCLA and Cincinnati. And Penn State, and and you sit there and go, holy crap, what the heck am I doing here? But then professional coaches from all over Europe start filtering in and start offering contracts. And it was a 10-day tour. And I was blessed enough, and I still don't know how, but within the first 20 hours, I had been offered 2 contracts, one to go to Belgium and one to go to Germany. I was the first to get picked up off that tour of 40 athletes. And it was a moment when the Belgian coach had come to me, and I was like, I don't know, but the Germans want to talk. So I talked to the German coach, and the German coach said, you have 20 minutes to decide. Our band's leaving in 20 minutes. And I was like, oh my gosh. Holy crap. But yeah, so I accepted. I went to Germany, and I know that was God's will for my life now, looking back. He definitely was providential in that. But definitely, for me, experiencing an international culture, living as an immigrant, being the girl who is frustrating everyone because she doesn't know the language.
Right.
So much of that has given me such empathy for those in those positions here of
outsiders coming in.
And even my own in-laws, who
Right.
English is not their first language for my husband or my in-laws. And so that part of my life has become very, very important. But coaching in that was wild because girls you can't expect 12 and 13-year-olds to speak English, even though they do in other areas of the world. But
right.
But yeah, and coaching over there is skill-based, not age-based. And so my youngest on my team was 12 and the oldest was 42.
Oh.
And so because they were all in the same skill bracket.
Right. Okay.
And so it was a wild thing. It really was wild. But ultimately, if you are passionate enough and you can tell they care about them, then they listen to what you say, and then you can implement the technical and the technical better.
Now, as a player over there, is the game pretty much the same, or are there different European styles? Like in soccer, the ultimate world sport, there are kind of different styles throughout the world.
Definitely.
What are the different styles in volleyball? Are there?
Definitely.
Does that happen?
Yes, it happens. So. International volleyball, unfortunately, volleyball here in the U.S. is kneecapped a little bit because we haven't had a professional league that has succeeded.
Yeah.
And so all Americans have to go overseas, and you just know that if you want to pursue professional contracts. And so, yeah, overseas the game's a little bit different. The ball is different in the international game. It's a little bit smaller. It's a little bit heavier, and that affects the game. Depending on where you go, it can be faster or slower than the American game. There are less substitutions, which is, I think, one of the biggest differences because, like in the NAI, you have unlimited subs. In the NCAA, you have plenty of subs. Yeah, right. And so in that game, like, there's no such thing as like a 6-2. A right side or a setter that can't block.
Right.
Like that doesn't happen.
Okay, so everybody's good at everything.
Yeah, and like liberos aren't allowed to serve, and so there's no such thing as a middle who can't serve. Whereas in the American game, it's like, oh my gosh, get that kid out of there because what's she doing? And so stuff like that, I think the culture builds better all around volleyball players, and that's why when you recruit them, you know what you're getting.
Right.
If you know that about, and obviously I learned that being overseas.
Now, I don't know if it's weird to talk about, but as a professional volleyball player in Germany, what kind of money is that? Is that enough to live on, or is it like a little stipend? What kind of money are you getting over there?
Yeah, so it depends.
I mean, can you make a living, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I was blessed enough to
real
make a
money.
living. Yeah, I was not getting rich by any means.
Right.
But I was blessed enough to be making money and to live. So basically, a lot of international contracts, like European soccer contracts, it involves. So I needed a work visa. Obviously, NASCO didn't so I went over for the first time. I was single, but then we got married, and I went over again. And he is European, so it was fine. But I needed a work visa, so that was included. I need health insurance because that's included. They gave me a car, they gave me a house, all those things, and then they pay you on top of it. Nice. And so it's a nice little gig. And so the stipend itself, the money itself, isn't a massive amount, but when they take care of everything else, it's like, oh, this is great.
Right.
And so Nasco and I living and playing was, it was a dream. What are you talking about? It was
right. It sounds
play
great.
On the weekends. Like, all you got to do, you wake up, you stretch, you go to work out,
and then
go
you
to the
explore
sauna.
Europe in your off time?
Off weekends we were sunbathing in the Mediterranean. It was, you get flights. Like we got a flight one time, like we honeymooned in Malta, which is, anyone who knows the Bible, Paul, that's where Paul shipwrecked. And so it was like, I want to go, this is so cool. So we look at tickets from the airport in Germany, right next to our house, down to Malta for a honeymoon. Round trip, they were €39 round trip.
No, nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, and so we went for a week and like got a freaking Airbnb. We were like, but just like that lifestyle and the work-life balance of it was phenomenal. But definitely there are professional volleyball players in the world that are making money.
Right.
And making a lot of money. I wasn't good enough for that, for sure. Was I making a living and was I professional? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great.
But yeah, so I was blessed.
So it's possible to play in the NAIA, which has good volleyball, by the way. It's not that much of a step down or anything like that. So it's possible to play here and then make a living overseas.
It's possible.
That's the kind of talent that we have in the NAIA. It's good. So with that perspective, where you've got this European experience, what is your recruit pitch to American kids, and then you've got some overseas kids?
Yeah.
How do you get people to come here?
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know why they come here. No, I think a lot of internationals like the fact that we are small class sizes, because they worry about getting lost and the language and the idea that professors care about you and get to know your name. I think that works in our favor when recruiting international athletes. The issue most of the time with international athletes is that they require big scholarships for one reason or another, depending on the currency in which the country they're coming from, or just because they're coming over here with nothing and their parents, it's hard to get their money into dollars. And so that's a lot of it. But for me, the biggest thing that is hard for people to understand is the Christian school.
Yeah.
Is because it's Christianity in other parts of the world is different in a lot of ways, and you go to churches in Europe and Germany and or wherever, I've been to churches all over Europe. It's just different. It's viewed differently. And so to come here and have people who are actively relating their faith into history or English class or psychology class or things like that just doesn't exist in a lot of other areas of the world on a regular basis. And so I think that.
And is that a positive for them, or is it like, this is weird, but I like it anyway, and they want to come be part of it?
I think in the recruiting pitch, it's not a positive thing for the majority. But I think once they get here and experience it, it turns out to be a very positive thing. Right. And me reaching back to teammates and stuff that I've worked with, so many of them are like, I didn't experience like Jesus until I came to MNU. Right. Which is a huge testimony to what we do here. But and those are kids that grew up in churches in Brazil or in Europe, and so I think that it is a positive and a negative. But ultimately, I think people decide to come to MNU for the people. I think people like Kristen a lot. I think that they wanted to come play for her. I think that the fact that she was winning a lot helps. Yeah. Because they want to come over and have a shot. A lot of that is because a lot of them can go back to their countries and be professionals, and so that's huge.
So what do you have this year? What's this year's team? What are your expectations? Who are your newcomers, big returning players? What do you got?
Yeah, so I'm excited for this year. We are returning all of our all-conference athletes. So we had 5 named last year, and we're returning all of those.
And who were they?
They were,
I know this, but
yes,
I'll test you.
Jackie Calvert was not only all-conference player for us, but made the all-region team. Mm-hmm. She's returning in the middle. Jen Roth is returning on the outside.
Senior's been a stalwart for 4 years now.
Oh, absolutely. McKenna Webster as a libero is returning. Who else? Courtney Hansen as a setter is returning. And
we'll talk about her in a second. That's a big comeback injury there.
Massively.
Right.
And Rachel Dawson's returning as well. Right. And so we lost 3 seniors who were all contributors, but as far as the all-conference athletes, we're returning all of them, which is huge. And so from a recruiting standpoint, but it is that they're all like seniors this year, like all of them. So it was a big recruiting strategy for me is then what do you go get? Right. And so I just decided to go get tall freshmen.
It's a good way to go.
Yeah, so we'll see. And hopefully as sophomores then they can kind of take over. But so I got, I want to say 11 freshmen. I think 11 freshmen and 1 transfer. Okay. And so got, a couple that I'm excited about, and I think that will contribute right away. But ultimately, you never know. With
Right.
COVID, with everything, now we have people in quarantine. Who cares?
Who knows? Right. Now, this conference, in the last few years, it's been dominated by Grandview.
Yeah.
And then we've added a decent little team in Park who
Correct.
Have they won twice in the last 5 years or so, or is just the one?
No, twice. For sure, twice.
They won the national title with an undefeated season, 5 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And they did it again just a couple years ago, right? Is
Yep.
that accurate? I think that's accurate.
Yep.
So Park, they're the elite team in the area, in the country.
Yes.
And they've joined our conference. Grandview's always good. Where are we going to sit realistically this year?
Yeah, so preseason ranking has us at 6th,
Right.
which
It's a
is
fair,
about-
it's a fair ranking.
I
At
agree.
least. Yeah.
I agree. Definitely we'll see how it shakes out and how it all goes, because COVID just throws an absolute wet blanket over everything. But
Right. Park only has like 7 people. They might get wiped out.
who knows? I don't wish that on anyone, absolutely. But it really is. All of us are like, oh my gosh, what do you do?
Yeah, they've never had a deep roster. It's always
No,
been
they
just
never.
8 or 9 people, and that's it.
Never. And they've signed some kids, and so I think they're going to be strong again.
Right.
Grandview's talking about a kid that they D1 transfer that they brought in, and they graduated their conference player of the year, their setter, and so definitely those two are really solid. CMU was solid last year, and sounds like they're going to be solid again. Evangel didn't lose anyone, I don't think, and they finished, I want to say 4th last year, and so I imagine, so I would love to break into the top 4. I would say so. Top half is realistic. It would be awesome to host the first round of the conference tournament. So that would mean top 4.
It's a good
but that means
realistic goal to have, yeah.
Yeah, but that means we got to beat one of those 4 teams,
Right.
which is not an easy task.
Right. You talked about your coaches, your favorite coaches earlier. I have here, who's your favorite volleyball coach that you've always looked up to, like professional level type?
Yeah.
Or even college, I don't care.
Yeah. Oh, that's tough. I mean, Karch Cry is a legend.
Right.
Period.
Even I know him, and I don't know anything about volleyball.
Oh, I'm proud of you, Chad.
Yeah.
No, he's an absolute legend, and he's the current national team coach for the U.S. He got us our first gold medal in international world competition in 2015 or 16, the World Championship, something like that. And so that was huge because we've always come up short, which as a world power for the U.S. is like, what is happening?
Right.
But then the Chinese national coach is also I'm a big fan. Jenny is like a legend in volleyball, but now she's gone back and is the coach of the Chinese team. So I would have to say Karch probably.
Okay.
Even though
And you mentioned Tony Dungy and others earlier. Who's your favorite non-volleyball coach? Is it the same answer for those people?
I'd probably so. Yeah. Jurgen Klopp, to me, I just love, which is horrible because my husband's a Manchester United fan, which if you know anything, then Liverpool's coach is, it is what it is. That's like a big deal in my household.
Okay. You're a Liverpool fan and he's in it.
No, I'm not a Liverpool fan.
Oh.
I'm a Jurgen Klopp fan, so I want to go on record saying that for sure.
And
Otherwise, I'm going to have to hear about it.
What about him jumps out at you?
No, he's so cool. He's so cool. I like his persona on the sideline. I love that he can show emotion. I love that he isn't just this stoic figure on the sideline because I very much tend to be that way as well.
Yes.
I was emotional as a player. I'm emotional as a person, definitely. But as a coach, I think that it's a level of transparency to show that side to your team and to the girls that you are coaching. And so I love that he does that. But then you get him in one-on-one situations, and his tactical and technical ability is high level. It's not just he's this huge motivator, rah, rah, rah. And I can relate to that as well. And then he recently has been speaking about his faith, his personal faith, and his relationship with Jesus Christ, which is huge because he's German. And he's that's just, you don't hear that a lot out of Europe. And so I have massive respect for him in that.
You grew up playing all the sports and liking all the sports. Who are your teams? Are you a Chiefs and Royals person? Who else do you like?
Yes. So I'm Kansas City for sure, born and raised. So anything, my husband and I love going to sporting games, grew up going to Royals games and Chiefs. And obviously the last decade has been fun with the MLS, having a championship in each of the soccer, baseball, and football.
Yeah.
I haven't been to a hockey game in Kansas City. I don't know. I just haven't gotten over that.
They have a minor
arena.
league team or something, right?
They do. There's like
the Mavericks. Okay.
Yeah.
Keegan, the producer Keegan likes the Mavericks. Apparently, I don't know anybody. I don't.
Yeah,
know anything
I've
about
heard the games are fun. They're over in Independence, but I haven't been. But no, like I like those teams, and then we watch a lot of soccer in my house. So when the Premier League's on, we watch the Premier League, and then we follow other major, teams in Spain and France and Italy and Germany.
Let's move on to your family. Obviously you and Nosko met here, but how did that come about? How did that happen?
So
you met a lot of athletes here. What happened with him specifically,
Definitely. So it actually happened when I was a GA, and he was a student. He was 3 weeks before graduation, and I was finishing my master's in business. Or I was in my master's in business. He was finishing his undergrad in business. And there was a course we were both in at the time that he needed to practice being the interviewee, and I needed to practice being the interviewer. And so I was on a board of 4 people, this corporate scenario of they come in and interview for a job. And in walks this, 6'2" European clean cut in a nice skinny, tie suit. And I was like, holy crap, it's just total sexy bomb walking. But, and I didn't even know who it was, but it was an undergrad. So me as graduate assistant, because I do pride myself on my professional nature, even though most people, whatever. So I kept it to myself. But later we connected via the internet after that exchange and that interview and that.
Okay.
And he asked me out, and I said, no, I don't date students. Like any good GA should. I will go on record saying that. No, I do not date students. And I said, but ask me again when you graduate.
Nice.
So 3 weeks later, our first date was the day after graduation.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
Yeah. So just like.
We were married within a year of that.
Yeah. That's the way to go. When you know, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big proponent of that.
And what was that like culturally to learn about his family? And was there any snafus there with any kind of, how do you do a relationship when one's American and one's a different country, all that kind of stuff? What was that like?
It's awesome. First of all, I will just go saying that for sure. Are there some snafus and some things that are really tough? Yes. How I view faith and how his family views faith is just different. How the language, like his parents are so skilled linguistically, and like I can't do anything like most Americans. Right. And so it was just like, oh my gosh. But I will say that I truly believe that it was providential that I spent time in Europe and learned those things, learned another language, learned how to be the immigrant, learned how to have healthy relationships with a lot of internationals. And so through that experience, it really was a blessing in disguise of, wow, I had no idea that this was going to be, the situation I was going to be married into, because Bulgaria, you can't even freaking find it on a map.
Right.
Most people.
I thought it was close to Moscow. I don't know.
It's no idea. Yeah,
it's not even close.
But so a lot of that's been awesome, but it definitely comes with its challenges, of course. And
now, speaking of his faith, I remember being impressed with him. I talked to Kevin Wardlaw, his coach at the time. Mm-hmm. Now, Nosko's the assistant soccer coach now. And he told me, this is just when Nosko was a student, and was really interested in the culture of MNU and the Christianity at MNU because it was different for him. And he was so interested in why is it such a big deal to not do this and to not do that, and what is the problem with drinking, for example, where in Europe it's in their bottles as infants. It's not a big deal. It's not true. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So what he saw too many people following rules but being mean to each other, and he didn't understand that. And I remember thinking that's really wise for somebody to come to that conclusion. So I was always impressed with him just as a person. So yeah, and I never really knew him. I hadn't talked to him. We did the video 7 years ago or whatever that was, but it was clear that he was funny, and it was clear that he was wise. And I didn't have the same reaction to you did physically to him, but I do understand that he's an attractive man. I can admit that.
He's so sexy for sure.
Yeah,
he is. No, but I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. That like his ability, because I always grew up, like as a growing up conservative Christian,
Sure,
like
same
all
thing.
these things were so important. It was like you find a man that can challenge you spiritually.
Right.
And I had like a vision of what that would look like. And when he came into my life, it was completely different than what I thought it would be.
Right.
But in the best way possible. He challenged me in ways that it was like, oh my gosh, I've never even thought about that, and things like that. But I will say, seeing him transform as a man and accept Jesus as his personal Lord and Savior was so encouraging for me as a Christian, to watch Jesus just get a hold of him and to watch him pray and God answer those prayers openly was just
Right.
incredible. There was a situation when he was he didn't have an apartment. He was trying to find another place. He wanted to stay in Kansas City because we had just met. But he was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? This girl's here now. I could go back to Minneapolis where his family is now. But there was this whole thing, and I said, well, pray about it. And he's like, well, I'm not like a Christian or whatever. And I said, yeah, but
Do it anyway.
I still believe God will hear your prayer. And so he prayed about it, and he had the kind of this weird thing that happened. I don't think anything's a coincidence as a Christian.
Sure.
But this thing kind of happened. And then he walks into my office the next morning, and I said, did you pray about it last night? Because that night he was going to sleep in his car to stay in Kansas City and continue dating me. And I said, did you pray about it last night? And he said, yeah, I did. And just as we're talking, so I was the receptionist at the time in the front lobby, and he walked in, and he usually brought me Starbucks in the morning, and so like any good boyfriend who's trying to kiss my butt. And Skelly Keller, the women's soccer coach at the time, comes around the corner, and he's like, hey, Nosko, haven't seen you in a couple months. Like, how are you? How's your summer going? And he said, good. And he's like, where are you staying now? And Nosko goes, oh, actually, like, I'm trying to find a place. And he goes, we have a room in our basement. I was like, when do you need to move in? And it was like one of those moments where, like, he immediately whips his head back around and looks at me, and I looked at him, and I said, God's real, man. It is what it is.
I'm not gonna try to convince you of it. It is what it is. So
yeah.
So experience it. That's great.
Yeah, it was awesome.
What is your life outside of volleyball?
Yeah. So my family is huge. So
Right.
All my family lives in Kansas City. On and off, we've kind of all ventured out. My brother lived in California. My sister attends Biola in Los Angeles currently. My brother went and played in Denmark. So we've all kind of come around, but we've all ultimately back nested in Kansas City, except for Abby currently, I guess. But
She's the one at Biola.
She's at Biola, yeah. So when my off days are a lot of them. So there's 7 of us. We all get along really well. All of us have different houses and places, and so when I'm not doing volleyball, when I'm not doing this, I have some good friends and stuff like that. Yeah, but some of my best friends are my family.
Right.
I've got nieces and nephews who are multiplying and are so fun that any spare moment,
So it's all
them.
about the Brewster clan with you guys?
It is, yeah. And then whenever we can, we get up to see Nosko's family because his parents are in Minneapolis. His only brother lives in Barcelona, so we're planning a trip to Spain next summer.
So is that a culture shock for them where it's this little European family and you've got this massively loud, crazy American family?
You would think, but their extended family is like their family.
Okay.
And so it isn't as big of a shock as you would think. Sometimes it's shocking when you go there because it's like aunts, uncles, cousin. They were raised in multi-generational housing, which makes it feel like
Right.
just as big a family as I do. So like when we were planning our wedding and stuff like that, our family was going to be something like 78 people.
Just the family section.
Just family. And so it was like, holy crap.
Right.
What are we doing? And so it isn't as big of a shock at all. He loves it. He definitely relates to it. And my mom's one of 7, and so we've got tons of people there. And, his family's very big in the extended
And you've
side.
got is Adam your youngest brother?
Adam is my youngest brother,
He's
yeah.
on the coaching staff now. So what's that like?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It definitely is really fun for me to watch him grow in a career that he seems to be built for. He's as a player was a top level player. There's no denying that. He was named top 12 best male players in the country in high school. He was played at a Division I school, Lindenwood, who's in the toughest men's volleyball conference in the country. He was recruited to the best schools in the country and turned them down because ultimately he wanted to study fashion. And Lindenwood was one of 2 institutions that had men's volleyball and fashion. And so he turned down offers from Ohio State and Loyola and places like that,
Wow.
where literally the national championships
Right.
of volleyball, to pursue a degree in fashion as well. And so yeah, and then he went on and played professionally, which was great. But now he's back. And when he put his name in the hat, I was a little bit shocked because as an NAIA coach, those are not the credentials you get used to seeing applying for your assistant positions. And so the fact that he's here, I am blessed that he is here. He's a phenomenal coach. He's a phenomenal presence.
And is he bringing something technical that you wouldn't have or didn't know? What's he bringing differently than what you already have?
Yeah, he was a setter.
Yeah.
He was a setter. He's a phenomenal setter. He's a really good setting coach. He's trained setters at some of the highest levels.
And I feel like I've watched him grow up because we're friends on Facebook.
Oh, nice.
And you and I are friends on Facebook, I'm saying. And so when I'm scrolling through my feed, I see him, and I've seen him since he was like 12 or 10 or something.
Yeah.
Because it'll be pictures from you. And I don't interact or anything, but I feel like I've seen him from afar growing up. And I've seen clips of him setting in college, and he's a freak athlete.
Yeah.
Just...
He is.
If the Brewsters are playing volleyball, and I know Trevor was good too.
Yes.
And you and Abby.
Yes.
And I don't know about the older ones, but
yes.
If the Brewsters are playing volleyball, do you just smash everybody in pickup games?
Yeah, so all 7 of us play.
Yeah,
my dad played in college, and when we enter family backyard events, it's like a little bit, people are like, oh, crap,
geez,
the Brewsters are here. But it's just like, oh, no, we're just here to have fun. Like, we just want to play with our family, too.
Right.
And they're just like, well, it's not fair when you guys do it. And I'm like, well, okay, but
that's true.
But no, it is fun, and like Adam obviously has grown up with it, and the sport. Definitely, the Brewsters have gone to the sport of volleyball, even though athletically we're talented in other sports. I had an older brother who was really good at basketball and soccer, and my sister was a dual athlete, played basketball and volleyball all 4 years, and so was a starter all 4 years in college. And so so of the 7 of us, 6 of the 7 played in college. The only one who didn't play in college didn't go to college. He went to trade school, and he's one of the best male players in Kansas City.
Wow.
And then by the end of it, 3 of the 7 will play professionally.
So
and even my brother brings...
Good little group. Then.
Yeah, he goes and travels the country still making money in tournaments. And so it's fun.
So talk about, I assume your parents will watch this, and then they'll be like, why didn't you mention me? So talk about your parents and what it was like to raise 7 and lose 4. Talk about that. That's some hard stuff that they've been through, obviously.
Definitely. So my parents are phenomenal. That's no question about it.
Are they from the area too? Where were they from originally?
My mom's from actually the Bay Area in California.
Okay.
And she's one of 7 girls there, born to a UCLA Rose Bowl champion and coach at Stanford football. And he had 7 girls. So that's my mom's background. And then my dad is from was a Shawnee Mission kid, Lawrence family all around here. So, but yeah, they met at Graceland, and then
they both went to Graceland.
Met at Graceland, and then came to Kansas City. My mom was a nursing student, and they have some nursing connections down here in Kansas City. So, but yeah, they're phenomenal. But they ultimately chose a lifestyle of relationships instead of material gain. And whereas I'm like, if they wouldn't have had all of us, they could have been like gone on vacations, like literally, how many years ago? 5 years ago, I think, for their 35th or 36th, they just had their 40th. But wedding anniversary, I was like, got all the kids together and was like, we need to send mom and dad away.
Right.
And so they were doing the counting. It had been something like 32 years since they had taken a vacation that didn't have a kid with them,
right, or
didn't revolve around a kid's sporting event. 32 years without it, without a vacation.
Right.
And that to me just speaks volumes to the people of who they are, bringing souls into the world for Christ and raising us in a way that to know and love Jesus and the Bible was their ultimate goal.
Right.
And so, phenomenal people. And obviously you'll still see them around. And,
I see them a lot.
Yeah, they're good people.
And they're empty nesters now, right?
They are.
So how's that going? 32 years and they're finally back together after a while.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like off and on empty nesters, because then when like Adam came back from Denmark and then, like he is crashing there until he figures out, okay, like all these things. And Abby, when COVID happens, she comes back, like all these things. And Trevor was in California and then came back. So it kind of like feels like on and off empty nesting. And when they don't have kids, they have grandkids because they're the ultimate Mammy and Poobah. And so they, Yeah.
That's a new one. I haven't heard poobah before.
Yeah, my dad came up with that. We made fun of him hardcore, but
I like
it is what it is.
It works.
But yeah, obviously the people they are, and having us and homeschooling all of us, and like, you know, a lot of us were home births as well, and my mom miscarried 3, and then we lost 1 at birth, and so much of that has just brought us closer together as a family unit, and just gives us more hope for the future and eternity to see those later on in heaven.
It's amazing. And I wanted to ask you more about homeschooling earlier, and I forgot about it. How this was back before homeschooling was all the rage. You guys were not like everybody else.
Yeah.
And so obviously you didn't know much different, but what was that experience like, and how did that shape you as a homeschool kid?
Yeah, so people that meet me now and I hear that about me are usually surprised, because I don't fall into the traditional mold of what I guess they think a homeschool should
right, the stereotypical
look or
homeschool
act like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we all get that, you know. You don't meet a Brewster and be like, oh, I bet they were homeschooled, you know, like some kids are walking around. I'm like,
no, I get it.
Yeah. So, but did we have moments that were like that? Because a lot of homeschool curriculum, events, conferences have like a dress code, for example, and like, yes, my mom made floor-length skirts for us to wear,
right?
You know, like things like that we still make fun of my mom for. Like, what the heck were we doing? But
saving money.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And so driving around in a 15-passenger van, because that's all that we fit in, and stuff like that. It was just it wasn't weird. You know, it was all we knew.
Right.
We grew up with not a lot, but we grew up with a ton of love in our family. And so for homeschooling, like, people would talk about vacations. Like, we didn't really take vacations. Like, traditionally we went to go visit family. You know, we went to family reunions and stuff like that.
Right.
People talked about staying in hotels. You know, we used to stay in one hotel room, 9 of us. So 4 of us on the bed, 5 of us on the floor. And so I didn't sleep in a hotel bed till I came to MNU and traveled. And I was like, this is
Sweet.
Awesome.
You're jealous of your older siblings.
Well, yeah, I had never had a new pair of clothes until I was like 16 and played like for a club team that we got like new warm-ups. And I was like, brand new Adidas, like this rocks, you know? But it wasn't weird to me. It was like, I had never, you know, we didn't sit down and eat at restaurants. We drove through fast food, and you were allowed 2 or 3, depending on how big you were, things off the dollar menu. That's it. And it's this, or this. And then we tallied them up, and we ordered like 14 double cheeseburgers from McDonald's.
Sure.
And that's it. And you shut up about it.
I did that yesterday. No.
Yeah. You know, it's just like, when you think about the logistics of it, it was crazy. But I think that ultimately my parents put us in situations that they taught us how to learn and be learners, and they challenged our worldview every time we turned around. So it wasn't just like sitting there doing history class or Bible class or English class. It was like, no, but why? And my family is all pretty opinionated, and it's all pretty, if you say something wrong, you're going to get torn up. You did not just say that. And so no matter what, you know, we definitely have learned to defend our faith, not just know it. And that's something that I think my parents did really, really well. And homeschooling was an awesome venue for that.
All right.
But it's different, except, you know, like in Germany, for example, it's illegal to homeschool.
Yeah.
And while I was there was actually a German family of 4 that the parents were arrested and the kids put into the system for homeschooling in Germany. And so when then, like, my teammates, I was like, did you guys see about, like, this thing? And they were like, yeah, it's crazy, huh? I don't know what they're thinking, trying to keep their kids at home. And I was like,
whoops.
I was homeschooled. And they were like, what? And I was like, oh, you know, like, just wild things that I've had experiences because of homeschooling.
Right.
But
the Germans do have a history of some tough rules.
They do. Agreed.
Moving into this, I've been asking coaches about the current climate and the Black Lives Matter movement and race relations and all of that. You have grown up in a homeschool where you've had to learn how to mesh with other people. You've gone to Germany where you've had to learn how to mesh with other people. You've had teammates that are all different from all different walks of life. You've got players under you from all different parts of the world and different personalities. And with our country so divided right now, us in athletics tend to sit here and be like, why don't you let's all just play volleyball, and then we'll all get along and learn about each other individually, and it'll be a team. Let's be on the same team. Let's try to do that. how do you what are your thoughts on the climate, and how can we get out of it from a coaching perspective and an athletics perspective?
Oh, that's so tough. Oh, that's so
I was
tough.
throwing you softballs the whole time. Now it's
Yeah, no, but that's real, and it needs to be talked about. For me, it's so incredibly important. Like, this topic hits home with me, not only because of my travels internationally, and so many of my friends
Right.
are from very diverse, literally all over the world. And then being married to a man who is an immigrant and from a different country, and my in-laws don't speak English, a large portion of them. And so, and then here being in charge of a group of young women that is diverse, and we pride ourselves at MNU Volleyball at being, diverse. And so, and have for years since Kristen took over. And so for me, this is so incredibly important that my kids, no matter what, first and foremost, know that they are loved and they are valued and they are cared for.
right.
But as far as dealing with it, I just so go towards the side of unity, like you're talking about, and having to come together, even through tough conversations and things like that, encouraging those conversations and coming together and having those conversations, because I think the divisive nature of this can be so dangerous and so detrimental to our team, our program, our university, our country, our world. And so ultimately we have to find a way to come together.
Right.
But putting people in situations that do continually challenge them, and I'm like, oh man, like, you have to find ways to have conversations and be okay with that you are very different than I am, and that you look differently than I am, and that you see Jesus differently than I do. Ultimately, I think that you have to still treat each other with the amount of respect, and you have to still come together in a way that is, biblical, very much so.
Of course.
But also, I think that we have a really big opportunity in athletics to show that, because athletics does tend to be very diverse. And MNU volleyball is no exception to that. And so I think that if we can be leaders from the front in unity and not divisiveness, and love and valuing each other, and because and it's not always been the case. Kristen was a big proponent for internationals, and there was a leadership change there, and Christina wasn't as big of a fan of internationals, and that wasn't a secret. And so then it was like, okay, me as a head coach taking over, I'm like, what am I gonna do?
Right.
And what do I have the budget to do? I mean, so many things, those things are real as well.
Right.
But for me, it's so important, if we're truly preparing people for the world here at the university level, at MNU,
Right.
then to put them in a bubble doesn't work, because the world isn't in a bubble.
Right.
And so continuing to build diverse teams, and to continue to have tough conversations, whether it be in Bible study or team meetings and stuff like that, to really, let's get this stuff out here and hash it out. And so I think that that's very, very important, and definitely valuable for me, because it impacted me as a player, getting to know other girls who spoke different languages and came from different church backgrounds and looked differently than me, whether it was Linjan or Vladislava or whoever it was. That impacted me massively here in a positive way, that ultimately slingshotted me into being able to travel the world,
Right.
And then marry someone who's an immigrant. And so that was huge. And so to provide that opportunity for my girls as well, and provide a healthy, safe environment to do that, is definitely top of my priority list. And that's why definitely I'm passionate about creating an environment.
Right. It seems to work in athletics, and hopefully we can spread that. I don't know. I don't know how, but
Yeah.
a common goal seems to be the theme, and we don't have common goals at the current moment.
Yeah.
Have there been any team issues with, not necessarily race relations, but like cultural differences from the different countries and stuff like that? Or is it always, oh, that's cool, let's learn about each other? Or have there been, in your experience, both conflict and resolution, I guess?
I think both.
Yeah.
I think there's always conflict to some degree when you have a kind of like a
culture clash. if you
Yeah,
will.
totally.
Yeah.
A lot of that is around like who they're dating. You know, like girl, it's just like, oh my gosh, is she? You know, like stuff like that. When you have conflict, it's usually like brought to a head over like some kind of she's stealing my man with some weird stuff that I'm like not like, you know. She's going about it a totally different way than I would, and I don't know if that we don't do that in America, you know, like stuff like that. Like, oh my gosh. But ultimately, as far as my experience, every time we've been able to come back to a place of understanding about coming together for a common goal, and I think that moving forward, we have to continue that, and finding ways to bring people together, and finding ways to not avoid the tough conversations, but have the tough conversations, because I think that those voices do need to be heard on both sides. And so as a facilitator of that, that's very important to me to do.
Great.
And continue to try to do. But God willing, I pray about it every day. Yeah. That's for sure.
On that note, let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Anything else you want to throw out there? Let's watch some MNU volleyball this year, free on YouTube this year. Subscribe, please, to this channel so that we can crank those numbers up, and then we're able to do more things with the more subscribers we get. So please click the subscribe button. I have not said that before in my life. I hate it when people say that. When my kids are watching YouTube, hey, mash that subscribe button, bro. I keep hearing that. I don't want to say that, but I said it. So that'll do it for episode 3. I'm Chad Jenkins with Molly Karagyaurov. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for having me.